Welcome to Tuntum Network, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cyrus. I'm happy to have you here. Today we are doing one for business, and it's concerning the continent Africa. So there is this World Bank and Red Cross publication for 2022, which I've been reading since morning, and there are certain disturbing revelations that I found there. What I'm about to share with you guys here is already on their websites. And these two institutions appear to be working hand in hand because the material that they've put out there literally is almost the same. They have estimated that about 140 million people in Africa today face acute food insecurity. And certain African countries have been listed in their publication. So I had to take my time, read through it, and get a little bit more of understanding to know what exactly they are talking about. Because since my childhood, these kinds of reports have always been about Africa, where sometimes they even make it look like the whole Africa is starving. All right, so these countries were listed: Somalia, Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and some countries in the Sahel regions, talking about Mali, Niger, Chad, Mauritania, and Burkina Faso. All right. And in their estimation, about 6.5 million people do not have access to food in Somalia. Somalia is a population of about 17 million people. So in a scenario where 6.5 million of them are not able to eat in a day, that is a cause of concern. Kenya, they've estimated about 520,000, Nigeria 200,000, Ethiopia 500,000, and the Sahel regions as well. Now, they've given some of the causes to these food insecurities in these regions. They mentioned that extreme drought problems, high cost of foods and farming necessities, and the repercussions of the COVID virus has also contributed to this. And in addition to that is the political instability and so on. In the past, I will look at such documents and feel sorry for such people who are affected. But after growing up and reading through bunch of documents and reports, I've come to realize that feeling pity or sorry for such people alone doesn't actually bring them any comfort or end the situation. So now I've come to a point where I look out for solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I am positive to say to you today that the next big thing to hit Africa is about food. It is not going to be about anything else but food, because every report I have seen so far has something to do with food. Food production is the new gold mine in Africa. This reality hit me just a few years ago when on TV I saw the news on how the river Euphrates had dried up. Now, this is a historic river, which is estimated that it has been around even before man existed on earth. This river starts somewhere in Turkey. It runs through the southeast mountains. It goes through Syria, through Iraq, and then it empties itself in the Persian Gulf. But it has dried up today. If you take a look at the picture I'm showing you here, that is a picture taken by Sightlight in 2021. Just 2 years after that, this is a picture taken by the same satellite in 2023. The river is gone. The vegetation, the farms, and animals and aquatic life and people's drinking water is all gone. How did this happen so quick? And how does it relate to the continent of Africa? You see, the biggest river in Africa is called the Nile. The Nile takes its main source from Lake Victoria. There are reports that I've read, and one of the websites that I read from is theheritagetimes.com, which states that there's been a research done by some British and Americans who are estimating that the river Nile may dry up in 500 years. I thought to myself, that time is so far away, it's never going to come. But then I did a little bit more of research and I found out that in fact there are rivers and streams that are connected to the Nile River which are already dried up. And as a result, people who were depending on those streams and rivers have nowhere to farm now. In Ghana today, our biggest environmental challenge is mining alluvial gold in the river and on the river banks. And as a result of that as well, most of our rivers are undrinkable. Same thing is happening in Burkina Faso, in Sierra Leone, and in Liberia. Farms are being destroyed for mining activities, and I suspect this is not going to get any better soon. The worst is still ahead of us. But I need you to do a quick research in your own community. Do a research on the foodstuffs that are frequent in your town and try to find out where these foodstuffs have been coming from. Because I didn't know until 2020 that Ghana even imported from Ukraine. Or did you know that your country has been importing cereals and grain from Ukraine all this while? In my mind, I always thought that our cereals and our grains are always from Africa. But I got it all wrong until the Russia and Ukraine war started. For that matter, do you know where your cassava comes from? Do you know where your plantain, your potatoes, do you know where all these foodstuffs come from? A couple of years ago, a major news broke out in Ghana that Ghana was importing cassava and cassava starch from China. I mean, this is a country where literally cassava can grow in any place. And I mean literally, it can grow anywhere you put it. And so when it came out on the news, everybody was shocked. And then we did our findings and we came to a conclusion that that was actually the case. But after doing a further research, I discovered that it wasn't only Ghana. Namibia is doing it. Some part of Nigeria is doing it. South Africa is doing it. Many other African countries are actually importing cassava outside of Africa. I couldn't even believe it when I saw on the internet that Nigeria actually imports gari from China now. When did this actually become a thing? Let me give you a little bit of closure. If you have family lands or any piece of land to your own name, it is time you considered farming on it rather than a real estate on it. Food insecurity is going to be Africa's biggest catastrophe in a few years to come. And I suggest to you, you start preparing for it now. You need to start acquiring all the necessary things that will make it more comfortable for you in order to farm. Because you haven't been doing it for a long time. You need to start digging wells, deeper wells, boreholes. You need to start getting access to some form of electricity supply to your farm and paving road access to your farms. The battle ahead is not against outsiders. It's for the survival of our own race. And the last thing you would want is to be depending on another country in another continent for supplies. What happened in 2020 and 21 shouldn't be a reality in Africa again. But the trajectory that Africa is on right now, it appears that it's about to repeat itself. Because the rivers are drying up. The rivers are getting polluted. The farms are being destroyed for mining activities and for developmental activities. People's interest in farming is depleted quickly. And the cost of running a farm is becoming more expensive. Fertilizer prices are going up. Pesticides are going up. All these things contributing to making a farm successful is becoming more difficult to acquire. Eventually, a lot of people are going to lose interest in farming. And then what happens? This is where the catastrophe will hit. When you say it is expensive and I say it's expensive and you say it is tiresome and he also says it is not worth it, then by the time you realize most of our farmers have left the job and food will be a very scarce thing on this continent. One challenge we have always faced, however, is this. We have always attempted to do this individually, but it's not going to work that way because for so many years it hasn't been successful. It is time that we considered cooperatives where we join hands with the rest of other farmers nearby where we farm in order to take care of our interests. If one person is pushing the agenda, it's quite difficult. But if 100 people are doing the same thing, then it's easy to reach the government. It's easy to reach an outside investor or a philanthropist. There are so many things going on the internet that we can take advantage of. But I'll say this to those who will say physically they cannot get involved in farming. Then hire somebody to get it started for you. Put people in position to take care of it for you. You cannot always say you can't trust anybody. You will have to find somebody you can trust and then get things started. The kinds of report I'm reading about farming and food insecurity that is happening around Africa is scary. It's so scary because when you look at the food you buy in your street corner and where they came from, it sort of frightens me. Things that we used to plant around the corner. Now you look at the same thing in a package and you see it's from China, it's from India, it's from somewhere far away in Bangladesh. What has happened to our farms? What is going on? Will the situation get better? I think it's up to us to take the bull by the horn at this point. People will have to get into farming. Remember, I've told you this before it's too late. It's better to start now than later, because sooner or later, one of these is going to be our reality. It's either we are going to be self-sufficient and have our destinies in our hands, or we are going to depend on somebody else and our destinies will be in the hands of the other person. Thank you so much for being a part of this. This is a short one I want to bring to your attention. Until I come your way again, God bless you. And please remember to subscribe, leave a comment if you have to. It's bye-bye for now.